Are you ready to explore a Caterpillar salvage yard with modern equipment, vintage equipment, and everything in between? We're gonna start right here in the front with a D400E Series 2. Let's check it out. So this is a D400E Series 2, one of the many series of D440 ton style trucks from Caterpillar. This is right in the middle. So you started out with your early DJB style trucks, which is the inner where they articulate in the middle. Cat bought out DJB, at least their articulated line of trucks, then went to the D250, the D300, the D350, and the D400, and this is one of the variants of what started out as a DJB. Now most of the parts, because this is a pretty late one, are all Caterpillar, and you don't have to worry about that anymore, but the earlier trucks in the D series line were actually DJBs from the UK. Pretty cool. So we're gonna start at the front of the truck. We're gonna check out the engine compartment. Caterpillar had a lot of different engine variations for these trucks. This one, being the last of the D series trucks, has the latest engine, the 3406E model. The E standing for electronic. So earlier engines were all mechanically powered, which means they had a mechanical fuel pump. You didn't really need any wires. The famous saying, a diesel engine needs 3 wires to run. Those were those engines. This engine has a computer, fully electronic, 3406E model. So I'm gonna put my foot in my mouth here. This is a C15. I wasn't exactly wrong on saying that the 3406E came in these trucks standard, but this machine has been repowered with a C15. Very common for Caterpillar to do, especially in emission states such as California, where you have to repower your machine per emission standard. So much stuff to look at. That's pretty cool. That's a 950G Series 2, but we'll get into that later. I want to go check out the cab row. The beloved cab row. Man, that was a lot of work to clean up. So we've been in business since 1992, and that's allowed us to collect a lot of different machines over the years and a lot of different cabs. Let's go see if we can find some cool stuff laying around here. I think I see one right here. We're gonna start with the 24H. This is a cab off of Caterpillar's largest grader, the 24H. 24 meaning the moldboard, the blade is 24 feet long. So the 24H grader actually almost had a 10-year production run from 1996 to 2007 when they upgraded it to the 24M grader. The grader underneath that was the 16. We actually have a 16 cab here, and you can actually tell the immense size difference between a 16 and a 24. So check this out. This is a 16H grader cab, and as you can tell, the design is completely different than a 24 cab. So if we open this door, we can poke around inside here. You can tell that there's no interior. That's because the platform of a 16 grader is actually part of the main frame of the tractor. And you go over to this 24 cab, and your operator platform is part of the cab itself. Pretty cool difference between the two Caterpillar graders. Aha! 777B cab. So this is for a hardtail or a non-articulating rock truck cab, the 777B. So the 777 is a 100-ton capacity haul truck. They use them for water trucks, fuel trucks, hauling rock. This is the cab for one. We've had this for a while here. Pretty cool. You can see the differences of the generations of 777B, C, D, E, F, and now the G is what they've come up with. And I believe there might be a next gen, just 777 without any letter designation. This guy right here is technically the second generation. They had a 777A model, basically the same truck. I believe the engine was a little bit different in it. It might have had a D348. I think it was the same engine as the original D10. The 777B trucks had a 3508. Let's check this cab out. So this cab's been scavenged pretty hard. We've had it a while here at Iron King. And unfortunately, these trucks are just so old now that no one really runs them anymore. So we've resorted to just pulling parts and pieces out of these things and selling the parts. And eventually, this cab right here is gonna go into the scrap pile. Wish I could say it was different, but there's nothing else we can use it for other than little parts and pieces. Let's see if we can find something a little bit. Ooh, look at what I see. Dozer cabs. Probably my favorite cab of all time, other than the 24. The 24 cab really has no competition, but the D10 Dozer cabs, they're second best in line. Let's go check them out. Ah, the D10T RJG style 213-1100 cab operator arrangement. Inside here, your basic operating tools. You have your front fascia, ripper controls, little monitor there so you can monitor all your gauges, your codes, active regens, stuff like that. Here is your gauge cluster so you can see hours, you can see if you're overheating, transmission temperatures, hydraulic temperatures, fuel level, all that kind of stuff. So the Cat D10T is the 4th generation of D10 style tractors, starting with the 84W D10, the original big dog that eventually turned into the D11, then went the D10N. You could include the D9L technically because the L series tractors were bigger, and that's a long story. But we'll just say that there was four generations of D10s up until this point. You have the D10 84W, the D10N 2YD, the D10N 3SK, the D10R 3KR, D10R AKT, D10T RJG, D10T2 JJW, and then there's a whole bunch of new ones now and I can't keep up. Let's go find something different. So what do we have here? D9 track frames. Now, just by looking at these, you'd have to be a wizard to know that these were off of a D9N, which I am the Caterpillar wizard. Let's get with it already. Here's how I can tell. These are D9N track frames. So here's how I know these are D9N track frames. It's a dead giveaway if you're ever looking at a D9N and you want to check out the track frames. Right here, the 2-bolt major bogie. This is what was the original major bogie for any high drive D9 tractor. 2-bolt cap, you know, you got yourself a D9N. So much stuff to see. And we've only cracked the surface of what's here at Iron King. And I think it's staring us right in the face. Let's check out the cooling package row. So cooling packages, they're what keep your tractor cool. They hold your radiator, they protect your radiator, they even hold up your lift cylinders. Let's check these out. D10N 2YD. So this would be off of a 1st generation D10 style tractor. This right here is what they call the radiator guard, or the slang term is the hard nose. And the reason they call it the hard nose is the nose of the tractor, and it's made of steel. It's pretty hard. So right here, if you look down, these are what they call the yokes, and these are what bolt to your lift cylinder. So your lift cylinder goes in here, and then you have 2 little caps, and you bolt your lift cylinder through here. That would eventually connect to the blade. So in the beginning of the video, I said that we have modern equipment and we have classic equipment. Let's go find some classic parts around here and see if we can talk about them a little bit. Looks like we got some pretty old stuff up here. This is the LL row. And that's kind of an inside joke we have here, but LL was started back in 1992. And there's a lot of old parts on here and the inventory's kind of messed up, but let's go see if we can find something old that we can go talk about. Ooh, I already see something cool and old. Check the front end out of this thing. This is the front end of a 773 haul truck, an original 773 haul truck. The reason I know that, it's made of fiberglass. Kind of odd, I'm not sure why Caterpillar started making things out of fiberglass, and most people think that's a modern thing. They actually started it back in the 70s. Fiberglass front end for your radiator protector on a 773 A model truck. Pretty cool. Now I know what you're thinking, Quentin, 1973, that was only 3 years ago. Let's see if we can find something a little older than 1973, which I think we have on the NN style row, which is, again, started in 1992. Let's make our way over there and see if we can find something a little bit older than the 70s. So it took a little bit of searching, but I think I found what I'm looking for. check this out over here. Now this is a 3-cylinder pony motor. If you asked me what it was off of, I couldn't tell you, but this is something from the 40s, 50s, maybe very early 60s. I'm not even sure why it's here. I think it came off of an old generator, but this is a pony motor. And what a pony motor does is, back in the day, diesel engines didn't have electric starters because they had so much compression, the starter couldn't get it going. So back in the day, they had what they called the pony motor. It's basically a gas engine with a starter ring gear on the end of it that you would get this gas engine running when it was really cold outside or warm or whatever. You'd get this engine running, and you have these little arms right here that would kick this gear out and act as your starter bendix and kick into whatever you were trying to start. And this would start the diesel engine, the pony motor. Pretty cool thing. It's old, it's outdated, and I'm glad we have electric starters now. It's trying to. I know we have more old stuff than that. Let's keep searching. So it took a little bit of searching, but we finally found something else pretty old. And they're near and dear to my heart. D7F track frames. Now, how do I know that these are D7F? Well, this is the first tractor that I ever bought for Iron King on my own. Came from a place called the GI Ranch, located here in Prineville, Oregon. D7F track frames. And you can tell the major differences that they've come across between the years of track frames. The original style track frames that these came out with, look at this. Non-suspended undercarriage, which they still make this today, where the roller bolts directly to the track frame. You can see these rollers right here. You got your bolts. They bolt directly to the track frame, and you get into new generations of tractors, and they have what you call suspended undercarriage. So I'll show you a suspended undercarriage, which we kind of talked about earlier in the video about the 2-bolt cap D9. This is what you call a suspended undercarriage. So you got your bogie, you have your rollers connected to the bogie, you have a pin right here, so that way your undercarriage can flex and move and go around obstacles. Pretty cool upgrade, and definitely a feat of engineering. Well, that's enough old stuff. Let's go see if we can find some modern equipment. That's gonna be a long walk. We gotta go back to the front of the yard. Let's go. So we've talked about pony motors, we've talked about fiberglass front ends, we've talked about 2-bolt track frames. Let's talk about some modern pieces of equipment, just like the one I'm sitting on, a Caterpillar 16M. So the Caterpillar 16 has been in Caterpillar's fleet since the early 70s. This one being an M, this is a 2005-ish model. Now, major upgrades include joystick steering, you have updated moldboard, updated circle drive, updated brakes, different transmissions over the years. I would say the biggest upgrade from the older style like G, H graders going to the M was definitely joystick control. Now with this tractor being burned, it's kind of hard to show you that, but basically what I'm trying to get across is all of the older machines had hand levers that you would pull to operate all the different functions of the grader. The newer M-style tractors have joystick control, so you can sit down and don't have to stand up inside the cab of the grader. Look at this beauty, a Caterpillar 966K. So let's see, so Caterpillar started with the 966 in the early 50s. You get to the original 966, goes to a 966C, which is like the first designation. I think I've seen some 966Bs laying around anywhere. I'll have to pull out a book and check me on that one, throw it down in the comment section when that 966 originally came out. When I came into this era of parting out equipment, anything 966D and older I didn't really mess with. I messed with a couple 966Cs, but I know mostly about 966D and newer. So you have your 966D, 966E, which is pretty cool. The 966D and the 966E, some of them actually have the same designation for the serial number 99Y. You could get a 966D 99Y or a 966E 99Y. I've never really seen that in any other piece of equipment that Caterpillar has made. There's probably some other exceptions, but the first time I've seen it was the 966D and the 966E. Even though they were different models, they carried the same serial number designation. Kind of weird. So this is a 966K. So this is when Caterpillar sort of started getting into emissions equipment, and this would be, I would say, your first year of putting DPFs on tractors without DEF, and there was a lot of problems with these machines. Luckily, we were able to get this machine pretty cheap. They're not the best parter outers. We've actually had this machine for about 6 months, and not a lot moves on them. I just don't think there's a lot of these left running around. Most of the companies that run these machines either go to a way newer 966 that has the DEF and the DPF to kind of work together. Just so much emissions problems with these 966K loaders without having the DEF and not being able to regen properly. These are kind of a turd, unfortunately, but we have one for parts if you're looking. So let's move on to something really modern, a Caterpillar D7E, or at least what's left of it. So the D7E, one of Caterpillar's first electric drive dozers, or what's left of it. Let's go check it out. So we're actively dismantling this tractor. Pretty cool machine. It has a diesel motor which powers a generator, kind of like a locomotive, goes to your final drives and steers the tractor, operates your pumps. Let's go check out the engine because it's already out of this machine. Nothing much to see here inside of it. Let's go check out the components. So here's your D7E engine. Now, normally a generator would be attached to this engine when you pull it out. We've already pulled the generator off of this, so we can see at least the bones of this engine here. You have your DPF system, your afterburner, your DPF, you have basic engine, and all this thing does is just like a locomotive. It has a generator on the back of it, and as it sees more load, it gives more power to the generator. And as you can see right here, it's got some sort of flywheel flex plate, weird looking thing I've never seen in a Caterpillar dozer before. Usually there's a big ring gear right here that has what would accept a torque converter with a big giant ring gear on it, and they would mate together. This has a spline shaft for the generator. Pretty cool. I've never seen one before. This is the first one I've come across, and the first D7E we've ever parted out. Let's go check out that 950G, that last complete machine we have here, and just talk about it a little bit and see if we can learn anything. So this is actually a 950H, which brings me into the 950G, 950H saga. They're basically the same machine, which is probably why I couldn't tell the difference between the two. We look here, dead giveaway, 950H, 950H. That's what this machine is. It's burned, unfortunately. We get a lot of tractors like this, salvage, construction companies, a lot of landfill stuff, and a lot of the landfill equipment we get is burned, unfortunately, because of the trash that gets on the exhaust systems, and it's the same old story. Trash gets on the exhaust gets hot, exhaust causes fire, machine shows up at the Iron King yard. So the 950 has had quite the long production run. They're actually still in current production today. Now, modern and old, I'm more of in the modern category of having knowledge about these tractors. So I'm going to start with the 950B. So we have 950B, 950E, 950F, 950G, 950H, 950K, 950M, 950, and 950GC. Now, 950GC stands for General Construction. They're actually a lower featured machine, but they're a modern machine that just has less amenities to save costs. Kind of a new addition from Caterpillar. So I'm gonna wrap this video up right here. Guys, I really appreciate you guys watching my videos. And if you have any questions, or did I say something wrong, please throw it down in the comment section. I like to learn as well. I hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you in the next one. See you later.